and gentlemen.
Welcome to the show. It's Movie Wire time. Oh, the Movie Wire. Bring the firing squad. Bill, Justin. Give the finger or laugh or smile. It's time to find out. No more waiting. So here we go. The Sultan of Cinema. The gumshoe of review. Here is Justin Henson. Let's start the show. Let's go.
Welcome to the Movie Wire.
And welcome to this week's edition of the Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. We got a big show this week with 4 movies to review, with 1 playing in theaters, 1 now available on streaming, and 2 that was short-lived in theaters and is now available on VOD. That will be part of this week's Movie Wire catch-up. This week on the show, don't underestimate him in The Amateur. Never underestimate a patriot in the Prime Video exclusive G20. The most dangerous enemy is an old friend in the Alto Knights. And finally, we all get what's coming in the end in the Rule of Jenny Pen. We got a lot to cover this week, so let's jump right in. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
Out of the windows to watch a roar and a bursting of flames. The Movie Wire Podcast.
With just
You need people like me.
the podcast for hot and trending movies.
The Wire.
And here we go.
Terrorists take over the G20 summit with President Sutton, bringing her governing and military experience to defend her family, company, and the world. Viola Davis stars in the Prime Video exclusive G20.
Madam President, we have a situation. Ma'am, apprehension is minutes away.
A little much, don't you think, Mom?
Zip it. You and your brother are coming to Cape Town with us.
Why?
You know why.
All you ever care about is work.
I implore all world leaders to join me at the G20 summit.
Come on, Madam President.
Oh, damn. Now I gotta go save the world.
The 20 most powerful world leaders together. Going dark in 3, 2, 1. To the governments watching, I've taken the G20 by force. When we launch Project Deepfake, we will reset the world's financial markets. You gotta read the words exactly as written. Quick beige fox. Quick beige fox. Quick beige fox. Now we control the narrative.
My husband and kids are missing. We have to find them. If you want to live, you'll follow my lead.
Now you're Captain America. That was quite, well done.
They've got at least 5 hostages in the kitchen.
Your survival is what matters most.
I will not leave them.
Drop it!
President Danielle Sutton. You get around, don't you?
I'll get around to you, too.
Mom, I can help.
Lights out.
Find her.
Where are my husband and kids?
We're all here together.
I'm gonna get you out of here.
What if we get you into a comfortable pair of heels,
Do you want an honest answer?
You know, there is nothing that screams global unity than an action movie about world leaders taken hostage and Viola Davis as a United States president kicking some star-spangled ass. And that's the premise here in the new movie for Prime Video, G20, which is just to be entertained by edge-of-your-seat action with a president that we want to follow, not because of what the president says or does, but the way a president can take down a bad guy. 1997's Air Force One comes to mind when I was watching G20. That honestly did it much, much better because there was better dialogue to help drive our president and his staff to build an emotional stake. We get that big Harrison Ford, "It's your turn to be afraid" speech in the beginning of that film to help not just build the motive of conflict, but hook the audience. Here, we don't get that kind of dialogue hook or any dialogue that really stands out. But what we do get is a good cast to at least make us feel like we have a hook. Because we want to hang on to these cast members' every word just because of how fantastic they are. Especially with the very lovely Viola Davis, who can literally take any movie, it seems, and take it up an octave. And this would be a perfect example of that. While G20 isn't a fantastic epic thriller, it is an effective one, especially in terms of movies that go direct to streaming. G20 will encourage you to pour your favorite drink and bring out a butter-drenched bucket of popcorn. Now Davis plays President Danielle Sutton, who attends the G20 conference with her husband Derek, played by Anthony Anderson, and their two kids, Demetrius and Serena Sutton. President Sutton is riddled with bad timing of the conference since her daughter was caught sneaking out of the White House in an act that will get the press's attention. Now, the G20 conference is an international forum where leaders of the world's 19 largest economies meet to discuss and coordinate on major global economic issues. A perfect setting for a terrorist organization to burst in, led by Anthony Starr, who plays Rutledge, whose plan is to capture the world leaders on camera and use AI to mimic their speech to tank the world economy. The further the global stock goes down, the more crypto goes into his wallet. President Sutton is able to avoid these terrorists, and with the help of her top Secret Service agent Manny Ruse, played by Ramon Rodriguez, Prime Minister Oliver Everett, played by Douglas Hodge, South Korean First Lady Han Min-so, played by Mi-hwa Lana Lee, and some help from the hotel staff. They must find a way to get out of the hotel and escape and find a way to foil their plans. Now, I mentioned Air Force One at the beginning of the review, and this is where we can have a political thriller without a president, without having cutscenes of what's happening in the background, just like we did with our vice president played by Glenn Close in Air Force One. Here we get the same, but our vice president is Vice President Harold Mosley, played by our top SHIELD agent from the Avengers, Clark Gregg, who does an okay job here, but lacks the emotion of stakes that we saw from Glenn Close's character. But I guess a vision of strength is an appropriate way to take this portrayal. But with his natural smirk that comes across his face, it's almost like it comes across as he's hoping for a new promotion by the end of the movie. But his performance is fine. His familiar face and on-screen likability is what engages us into his character. And that's what this movie is all about. An ensemble of likable cast members that give it their all. I wasn't necessarily rooting for the president or other characters, but I was rooting for the cast and the situations that arose. The action scenes are mediocre at best, with the exception of the climax that did look fantastic, even though a little cliche. But that's the thing, is G20 doesn't try and break new ground, as we see time and time again from movies available on streaming, but it does what it seeks out to do, which is purely entertain without going full on, oh, come on. It keeps its cliche moments subtle but present enough to enjoy it without rolling our eyes. And again, this is thanks to the cast that really does give it their all with some limp dialogue. There was never a moment that I wasn't entertained by G20, even to the point I wanted to grab another drink from the kitchen. And this movie made me forget that there was a pause button, and I didn't want to get up. And I called that an effective popcorn movie. If you go into G20 and expect a new action classic, you will be greatly disappointed. But if you go in and just enjoy it for what it is, it's fun. It's a fun time. It's a fun little thriller. G20 is a turn-off-your-brain action thriller that we have seen time and time again. We've seen from the past. Just this one feels more generic because of the dialogue that never really breaks through for believable stakes for our characters. But our cast knows this and ensures that their portrayal demands our attention. This is a movie that really does showcase the talent of Viola Davis, not because it's a groundbreaking movie or a performance that will be completely memorable, but the fact she can make a day-old donut look and smell fresh again. G20 for what it is, it's an entertaining, effective thriller that won't make you stand up and shout USA, but it will make you wish Viola Davis would run for office. After G20, I'm hoping she gets reelected and we get a sequel. I'm giving G20 3 stars. When his supervisors at the CIA refuse to take action after his wife is killed in a London terrorist attack, a decoder must take matters into his own hands. In The Amateur.
You ever wonder what they do with all the stuff you dig up for them?
That's not my job.
No, but you never wonder?
No, it's the CIA. I gotta trust that they'll make the right call. Maybe it's better not to know. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Charlie, I think you need to see this.
What is this?
Your wife has been killed. What you do is very important to what we do.
Let us handle this.
I want mission-specific training, cash, and a new identity.
Have you lost your mind?
I want to find and kill the people who murdered my wife.
I don't think you could beat a 90-year-old nun in an arm wrestling match.
I want to face my wife's killers, look them in the eyes, and balance the scales.
Take it. Take it.
Aye.
Point it at my chest. Do it now. Put your finger on the trigger. You can't do what I do no matter how much I train you. You're just not a killer, Charlie.
You're just a nerdy fella that works on computers. What you doing?
Just gonna kill you. Do you ever account for the things I'm good at? You held a gun to my wife's head. This is a remote that controls a device that's been decompressing the glass beneath you.
You have the wrong person.
No, I have exactly the right person.
We got a ping in Rome.
He's in London.
He just got on a bus in Prague.
He practically invented half of our surveillance. Maybe y'all misjudge this individual. This ends here.
You recognize her? If you jump really fast, you might survive the blast.
Wait!
Based on the Robert Liddell novel of the same name and the remake of the 1981 film of the same name, 2025's version of The Amateur is a stylish, enticing spy thriller from the mere look and presentation. This is what gives us the hook, along with a perplexed but engaging performance. At times, from Rami Malek, who plays Heller, a CIA computer desk jockey that works behind the scenes as a decoder for the CIA, until his wife Sarah, played by Rachel Brosnan, is shot and murdered. And instead of posting complaints online, trolling his killers, hacking their Facebooks, he decides to take matters into his own hands. Now, The Amateur has its good moments, if you will. It has some scenes of intrigue, but this is all shoved into the first act of the film, where we are building the stakes. The setup of what Heller is about to do and how he's going to do it and how he's going to be underestimated. I would have rather watched the first act twice and sit through the entirety of the film. The problem we have with The Amateur is after we get the premise, it turns into every other spy movie that we have seen before, filled with loopholes, running, going from country to country, and looking over your shoulder in camera shots. And when we have a character that has an emotional stake that we see in the beginning, and then it loses it when he goes on the run, we are just merely following Rami Malek run from place to place, with of course a recycled CIA double cross that we have seen time and time again. There is a couple of scenes where the movie shows examples of hacking or using face recognition to track people, but this is where Malek goes from country to country, street to street, with cameras filling the areas, filling the streets, with knowing this. And there is no fear, there is no use of this by the CIA until we get to the back end of the movie, and our Heller character gives us an example of hacking city cameras around the world and placing his face on random people. Where was that in the beginning of the movie? Now, I can accept the loopholes, the flaws, and this could have been easily missed if the movie actually had interesting characters that kept our minds distracted with intrigue. But it seems like every other single character in The Amateur is more interesting than our main character, Heller. For example, we have the CIA field agent trainer, Henderson, played by Lawrence Fishburne, who we can see have good potential as a character and some good chemistry with Heller, and that's presented well, like we're gonna get more of him. We also have an undercover agent called the Bear, played by John Berthal, who Heller once saved his life, but this is never explored. It's just merely mentioned. But again, we see some potential for some good chemistry and story build with both of these characters. It would have been wise to spend more time with these two characters during the middle of the movie, where nothing happens. The Amateur struggles to realize that we have a beginning and we have an end with little that happens in the middle. And we have all these characters that could have been explored or used to forte the stakes in the movie. But these characters are merely teased. Given with all the other subplots happening in the movie, these characters could have been utilized more properly. We even have a conflict where we have an internal Black Ops versus CIA director that is teased at a bigger conflict that again is never truly explored. This becomes frustrating to watch. It's the frustration I'm sure Alan Grant got when he was teased on the Jurassic Park tour when the Dilophosaurus never came into view, before the car just moved forward. All I could do is hit the armrest of my theater chair and say, damn. And those that go see The Amateur to see how Malik gets his revenge, let me just say, you see almost all of it in the trailers already, and the kill scenes are just about as long as they were in the trailer. So the marketing hook to show this action spy thriller is actually shown in almost the entirety of the trailer. Except when we reach the final encounter with our main antagonist, that I will show more respect than the marketing team and leave that for you to discover. The Amateur was directed by James Hawes, in which I reviewed his last year's emotional One Life with Anthony Hopkins, that you can listen to my review on that episode, number 116. Hawes' direction, as he showed in One Life, he knows how to set a tone and feeling of guiding us through the emotions from secrecy, loss, emotional, and stress. But this is only when the emotional is present. When we lose moments of these emotions, Hawes gets lost as well, and we get the standard looking over your shoulder shots by the man on the run. We get quick edits to symbolize danger. We never get intimate with our characters to truly hold on to what we saw in the beginning of this film. This version of The Amateur was written by Black Hawk Down and Transformers The Last Night writer Ken Nolan and 2017's American-made writer Jerry Spinelli, who run into the same problem as our director. But the difference here is that the writers are the ones at the root of the problem. Our writers don't take this material up any further. It doesn't take it up a notch. They don't do anything different. And they feel the focal point should be on our Heller character. And rightfully so, but even in moments of revenge, the dialogue doesn't go far enough to show true emotion. Our Heller character by Malik doesn't show any emotion in the middle of the movie. He almost forgets that his wife was murdered. We get all that emotion taken out. And the middle of the movie is just Malik giving reactions of, look what I just did, as if he's pleased at his craft versus getting revenge. And I don't know, maybe this is a way to read this character, is that it's not about revenge, but proving his level of intelligence and his worthiness to the CIA. The Amateur, given the material our writers present, needed to be 30 minutes shorter to at least attempt to make the pacing feel smoother. The middle of the movie is pure boredom. It suffers from multiple missteps of a movie that could have been something memorable if all the characters were involved in the stakes. And the writing conveyed that. But The Amateur, like most spy movies, will simply just stay undercover for the near future. I'm giving The Amateur 2 stars.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews for movies that just became available to rent, buy, or stream now.
Now available on video cassette.
The future favors the brave, and the brave was the one that bought a ticket to yet another meh Marvel movie in Captain America: Brave New World, receiving 2 stars. Human traffickers beware, it's another Jason Statham movie that we all know what's gonna happen in A Working Man. Here's a hint. He beats up and kills a lot of people. A Working Man received 2 stars. Today's the day in a movie that teases suspense but ends up being an emotional reflection, and I was fine with it, but others may not see it my way. In The Woman in the Yard, receiving 2.5 stars. Porky Pig and Daffy Duck are Earth's only hope in their first big screen team-up in The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie that was as loony as it was touching and entertaining, receiving 3.5 stars. He's Dying to Save Mankind in Mickey 17 that constantly battles itself for substance over spectacle, receiving 2.5 stars. When the odds are unbelievable, show the world you're unbreakable in The Unbreakable Boy that actually shows vulnerabilities and humanity, and that makes this a hopeful and happy tearjerker, receiving 3 stars. Everyone dies, and that's fucked up in The Monkey. And I actually wish I said that's fucked up more in this film, receiving 2.5 stars. Meet Nathan Kane. He can't feel pain in Novocaine. That after we get the premise, the film doesn't do anything with it but becomes just a novelty, receiving 2 stars. A Little Bear goes a long way. And that's the truth in Paddington in Peru. Even though innocent enough, this bear isn't challenged enough to do something different, receiving 2.5 stars. Espionage is deadly, marriage can be deadlier. And again, ain't that the truth? In Black Bag, which was a stylish mystery thriller and so far one of the best movies of the year, receiving 3.5 stars. Remember, don't forget to breathe. From Utter Boredom is The Last Breath that received 2 stars. Romance is Dead in the surprising rom-com horror slasher film Hard Eyes. That just like love, you never know when you're going to fall in love, but I fell in love with Hard Eyes, receiving 3.5 stars. But he hasn't called me since. And finally, Missing, Cosmic Force of Hope and Holiday Cheer, last seen in the North Pole. This tagline should have been changed to Please Miss Red One. That is yet another vehicle for the same damn Dwayne Johnson character we have seen in every other freaking movie. It's just with this one, nothing interesting happens. This was a lump of coal of the holidays, receiving 1.5 stars. Make sure you check out those reviews of my previous episodes, and while you do, don't forget to hit follow and subscribe, and please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Now, before we jump into the last set of reviews, there is a podcast that not only do I listen to week over week over week, but I tend to drop by from time to time. And this week it's extra special because we're covering a documentary about a movie that's true and dear to my heart, which is a Goofy movie. And the documentary is called Not Just a Goof. That's streaming on Disney Plus right now. That's the first special part of it. The other special part of this is that we are also joined by my cinema partner in crime from our show Back to the Balcony, and that's Antonio over the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast. And this is a fantastic discussion. The link to the Talking Smac Podcast will be in the description of this episode, along with a link to that show. Make sure you follow, subscribe, and make sure you check out that fantastic discussion. But let's hear from the Talking Smac Podcast now.
Hey Josh, I'm finally ready to do something fun every Wednesday.
Alex, finally. We're going to talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and much, much more, right?
Yes, but we're also going to talk Star Trek.
Make it so, my friend. Catch Talking Smac every Wednesday on your podcatcher of choice. We'll see you there, Smackheads.
Theaters to streaming seems too short, so that can only mean one thing. It's time for the movie Wirecast.
Confined to a secluded rest home and trapped with his stroke-ridden body, a former judge must stop an elderly psychopath who employs a child's puppet to abuse the home's residents with deadly consequences in The Rule of Jenny Pen.
Not from around these parts, huh? I'm a judge in the city. What you doing in a shithole like this?
I'll be better soon. Then I'm gone.
And we can both look forward to that day then, can't we? In the meantime, why don't you try and make some friends?
What you eating? Right.
Stay clear of that lot over there. Give them toys to play with like children. Some of them think they are too.
Hello.
You out causing mischief, are you? Painting the town red.
What's his story?
He was here when I got here.
Who rules, Tony?
Ginny Pin.
It's share and share alike here, Judge.
Communism always has the greatest attraction for those with the least.
I'll see you tonight.
I'd like to make an official complaint. He's the menace here. He's been at me from the jump.
Sometimes people get confused.
I'm not confused.
Have you been taking your medication?
I feel sorry for you, Judge. You've got a raw deal. You'll get worse and worse till you can't speak. Or even lift a finger. That's if you can still think straight enough to know what kind of hell you're in. We don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing.
You think you got everyone pegged?
Hey! Bingo! I'm really glad we were able to spend this time together. You need to check out now. You'll get what's coming to us in the end.
The world breaks everyone. And afterward, many are strong at the broken places. Where there are no lions, hyenas rule.
Now, again, short-lived in theaters before being released for streaming, based on a short story written by Owen Marshall, this story centers on Stephen Mortison, played by Jeffrey Rush, a former judge after suffering a debilitating stroke as a judge on the bench, finds himself residing at the Royal Pine Care Home. Initially, Stephen maintains a sense of superiority over his fellow residents, believing his stay is temporary. However, his perception begins to shift as he encounters Dave, played by John Lithgow, a long-term resident who, alongside his eerie hand puppet, Jenny Pen, exerts a sinister influence over the facility. Dave's nightly rituals of tormenting fellow residents draw Stephen into a chilling game of survival and resistance. Now, the rule of Jenny Pen, we can find messaging throughout the film that I will cover in just a second. But as we look at the rule of Jenny Pen at a surface level, this is a movie that we will go see just for the mere performances. John Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush give absolutely chilling performances here that if there was no other characters on screen, this would have been almost just as goosebump-induced entertainment. But that also can add as an opportunity, because even at times, I wish the other characters were brought into the danger to a more dangerous extent. But at the same time, this is a movie that's hard to ignore the powerhouse of these two leads on screen. Each character brings her own version of what's unsettling that supports the message of the film. John Lithgow's portrayal of Dave is nothing short of mesmerizing. He masterfully balances charm with menace, creating a character that is both captivating and deeply unsettling. Lithgow's performance transforms Dave from a mere antagonist into a complex figure, embodying the themes of power, manipulation, and the fragility of the human mind. His interactions with Jenny Pen add layers of depth, making the puppet not just an instrument of terror, but a symbol of Dave's psychological torment. Then we have the contradiction of power taken away with our judge, who used to be the one in power, making decisions affecting the outcome. Jeffrey Rush complements Lithgow's performance with his portrayal of Stephen Mortison. Rush captures Stephen's transition from arrogance to vulnerability with an amazing skill here, where we don't really get a too outlandish transition because we have to understand that these are the elderly that have learned and been in their ways for years, and we can't transition a character that quickly in just a 90-minute movie. Rush navigates the challenges of aging and physical decline, offering a look into the loss of autonomy and identity. The chemistry between Lithgow and Rush elevates the film, making their confrontations not only thrilling, but emotionally charged, that will deep dive into your psyche and your internal fears of old age, and also reminiscent to childhood for some. It tackles the topics of bullying, power, relevance. This movie tries to shove unsettling moments, fear of our age growth or evolution of who we are into the messaging, and it touches a core. Each of these two characters challenges the order, the norm. This movie uses age and dependency in a care home that challenges the power that no longer exists. And it uses this care home as almost a symbol of society or community. And those in positions of power, the louder the voice, or the gimmick, if you will, can exploit the vulnerable. Even a place of care, those that have instilled fear and dominance rule the community. The Rule of Jenny Pen takes the vulnerability of growing older and makes it a growing point that even from childhood to the elderly, human instinct of power and control never changes. You have an alpha and a beta. The vulnerability of being dependent on others. This is a great fear we see in children and our elderly. This is a true human fear, and I love it when movies tap into the true nature of fear, which is why Hollywood uses kids and the elderly to symbolize vulnerability and give us a fear factor. John Lithgow's Dave's manipulation of Jenny Pen serves as a metaphor for the ways in which individuals can exert control over others, exploiting their weakness for personal gain. The narrative encourages viewers to reflect on social attitudes towards aging and the importance of empathy and respect for the elderly. But here, it never feels like a cheap one-trick pony. It generally feels real. The Rule of Jenny Pen isn't a movie that will have moments of jumping out and saying boo, but taps into the deep fears that a lot of us have, is the feeling of being dependent and helpless. The film was written by Eli Kahn and our director James Ashcroft, which will be both of their best films to date, and with Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow forteing the material, it will help make their work more memorable. What truly stands out is James Ashcroft's direction, who uses practical lighting, camera shots to really build the tension without additional help. And what stands out is John Lithgow's Dave, but not only that, our Jenny Pen doll in his hand. Whenever he holds up this doll to demand acceptance, the lighting naturally shines throughout the doll's eyes and puts a red glow to symbolize a sense of judgment or danger. What I really found intriguing about this is that we have our judge character that has an unfortunate accident that has to make the decision. He has to be the judge, the jury, in a lot of different cases. But here, he is not in control. And we have our Dave character take place of the judge in this community, who demands a following for those he torments by flipping Jenny Pen around, raising Jenny Pen's nightgown, and asking those to kiss his wrist, and telling his tormentees to kiss Jenny Pen's ass in respect, like a Twisted Pope type character. Ashcroft's intimate style is eye-catching, and it demands attention on screen by his style and capturing a form of seclusion and the fear of getting older, along with childlike bullying. This isn't as much scary as it is emotionally unsettling, which can also bring it to a fault of the movie, where our writers don't know where to properly take this kind of concept to a climax that feels like it fits. Instead, we get a climax that borders cliche and almost out of place, where it's not so much in question that it's earned, but it just deserved more. The Rule of Jenny Pen is a movie that has a lot of build of unsettlement, that builds on an uncomfortable fear and topic that leads to an unsatisfying and sloppy climax that feels tossed in after the care of every other moment in the film. This is a movie that will serve in my memory bank as not so much a great or amazing movie, but good direction with fantastic, amazing performances that make this movie worth a watch. And for that, I'm giving The Rule of Jenny Pen 3 stars. Two of New York City's most notorious organized crime bosses fight for control of the city's streets. Once best friends, petty jealousies, and a series of betrayals set them on a deadly collision course in the Alto Knights.
Where do I start? You're going down a very dangerous road. And we ain't been down dangerous roads before. But that's the risk you take. Me, I take that
but you're
risk.
not where I am. I give to charities, I pay my taxes.
Let's remember something. I put you where you are today. It's because of me.
Mr. Good Citizen. You want to be like them? Come on, you ain't like them. They own this country. They're bigger gangsters than we ever could be. All of a sudden, you want to be half in, half out, half a racketeer? You can't have it both ways. You're either in or you're out.
You must have seen who shot you.
The man took a shot at his own boss. We just grew up together. Frank sometimes forgets where he comes from.
Real more fly off the handle.
Make sure he's dead. Bang, 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 bang.
I don't want to make a lot of noise.
No noise. It's a fucking gun.
What happens now?
I'm gonna retire. I need to find a way to take it all down.
It's just you and me. We are our own family.
He's up to something.
I'm telling you, he's not going to try anything.
How do you know what he's gonna do?
Ooh, Lordy, my trouble so hard.
Now, The Alto Knights is intended to be a mob drama with, of course, Robert De Niro playing his typical gangster role. But I think our filmmakers got too ambitious when brainstorming the visual of Alto Knights, where somebody at the discussion table said, you know what would be better than having Robert De Niro play yet another gangster? Having him play two gangsters, Nutty Professor style. This is the point where everybody at the discussion table stands up and claps and says, that's brilliant! While me, I'm in my theater seat looking at the final product and I'm booing while I murmur to myself, what idiot saw this and thought this was a good idea? The Alto Knights many will appreciate the idea and ambition to make a gangster movie feel fresh, and I can appreciate that. But appreciation is different than saying it's good. I can appreciate the socks I get on Christmas morning. I can appreciate the work ethic of the neighbors waking up at 7 a.m. to mow their fucking lawn. That doesn't mean I can't boo you in my head. The tale of Alto Knights is based on the true story and relationship that Castillo and Genovese had. These two lived the life of a gangster from the 1920s until Castillo retired in 1957 after his assassination attempt. During the 1930s, Costello made a name for himself selling slot machines before his boss Luciano was convicted of running a prostitution ring in 1936. After Luciano was sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison, Genovese emerged as the new head of the Luciano crime family. Genovese fled to Italy in 1937 to avoid a murder charge, which left Luciano to appoint Costello to the new head of his mob. Genovese didn't return to the United States until 1947, asking Luciano to reinstate him as the mob boss. Luciano refused and kept Costello in charge, which eventually led to Genovese's assassination attempt on Costello in 1957. Robert De Niro plays both Frank Costello and Vito Genovese, best friends growing up seeking the American dream of opportunity. Of course, this we have seen from many gangster movies past. The land of opportunity is a subtle recycled way of segueing into introducing a main character to a life of underground crime in a gangster movie. But hey, we get two De Niro, so it should feel fresh, right? Now, this isn't a jab at De Niro. He's a fantastic actor. But here, between the two characters he plays, there's nothing that separates the performances other than makeup and prosthetics. The performance from De Niro in his two roles are too close together and identical. The only thing that separates them is the makeup and prosthetics, because the performance feels identical. And because of this, the only thing we have to revert to is gazing upon the makeup done to give the impression of two separate characters, which took me out of the movie, because the longer I stared, the more I was seeing flaws in De Niro's performance by attempting to balance two separate characters. Why this movie decided to have De Niro play both of these two people of history I have no clue, and the movie didn't urge me to research it because by the end of the day, it doesn't matter. These roles should have been separated into two separate actors to help build a chemistry or intrigue. We can see that De Niro, during the conversation pieces between himself, that he doesn't know how to react. It's not interesting, it's bland. The Alto Knights was directed by the one and only Rain Man Good Morning Vietnam director Barry Levinson. I'll use the word again. I appreciate the look, feel, and tone that goes into his films that spark appeal. He knows how to set a scene to make one feel welcome into his world. And Alto Knights is no different. The tone gives us a feeling to want us to follow. His focus and balance to the characters and how to interact with the setting. This is the strongest point of the movie. When the movie wants to be intimate with its characters, it feels like the viewer is part of the conversation. And when it wants to get the feeling of its time and place, it feels open for the viewer to explore with our eyes. Now, The Alto Knights was written by Nicholas Pileggi, the writer of Goodfellas and Casino, who is a fantastic writer. But I think that is the problem, is the fact he has too much experience in writing for De Niro, that between our two De Niros, Pileggi is visualizing De Niro's delivery and De Niro can't separate it. It's almost written just for him and both of the dynamic characters. And that means that each character shows a level of inconsistency or depth that just appears as mere surface level. De Niro struggles with deciphering this material into separate characters. This is disappointing because early on in the movie, we get a glimpse of an attempted assassination attempt against Frank Costello and Frank wanting to retire from a life of the mob. And we see some brief conversations with his wife, Bobby, played by Deborah Messing, that does give one of the best performances of the film. But between Frank and Bobby's conversations, it always feels like it's teetering and longing for more depth of chemistry between Messing and De Niro. It's not that it's not believable chemistry, if we take into account that our filmmakers wanted to convey a dead marriage, but I don't think our filmmakers wanted that to be viewed. They didn't want that to be portrayed. That wasn't the intent. The Alto Knights is a disappointing mess given the talent involved that comes across as just a generic elementary telling of a true story between the relationship of two famous gangsters, from friends to enemies in a time where corruption ran all. And Barry Levinson and writer Nicholas Pileggi never truly tap into this, and that sadly should have been the bare foundation of intrigue into a film like this. But instead, we get a Robert De Niro one-man show that never really goes anywhere. And Robert De Niro playing two separate roles in just prosthetics and makeup makes this even more bland than it should have been. This was the Nutty Professor of gangster films, just without Robert De Niro dancing like a pony and farting at the dinner table, which I would have loved to see. At least that would have been something memorable in this film. I'm giving The Alto Knights 2 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Thread, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you haven't yet checked out the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and the Movie Wire's crossover show, Back to the Balcony, make sure you do. Again, the link of that show will be in the description of this episode. Until next week, do me a favor. Make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film and support your local movie theaters.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.
Let the credits roll. We say farewell. Join us next time. We'll have more tales to tell.